Is it just yeah? So we'll go about 50 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, just go for it. Yeah.
Brilliant. So obviously we're going to do the introduction, but we know you as Jonathan Royle.
It's probably easiest to do it as Jonathan Royle. I might make mention of the fact that I was born Alex Smith at some point, but in terms of anyone wanting to double check anything I might say on the internet, they're going to find it a damn sight easier cross-referencing Jonathan Royle.
So we'll introduce you now. So with us is Jonathan Royle. He's author, lecturer, TV personality, who's had a varied career in hypnosis and has worked with some major celebrities. Is that fair enough to start with?
That is, well, yeah, it's fair enough. It's true. It's simple as that. It's perhaps not as spectacularly exciting as it may sound. It's like anything when it's a job. There comes a point that it's not quite as glittery and glamorous as it may appear from the outside, to be honest.
Well, could you, just for the listeners, could you just tell us a little bit about your background and you as how you led into this? Because you did start this at a young age, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Well, by long story, I'm 47 this coming August. So 47 years encapsulated into about 2.5 minutes is that I was born on a circus back in 1975, and my dad was a circus clown, Tizzy the Clown, and my mum did a whip cracking, sharp shooting, knife throwing, rope spinning, Western cowgirl type act under the name Marianne Montana. At the age of 3 and a bit, just over 3.5, I started performing as Flap the Clown with my dad on Gandhi's Circus in England. And I grew up on the circus for a few years, but then my mum wanted me to go to a normal school, so to speak. So I ended up only performing at weekends, in school holidays, and then the rest of the time I'd go to a normal school, and my dad would be travelling. But that was problematic because I was still appearing in national newspapers and stuff, and thus became a target for bullying because I was the clown, I was the young clown, the clown son, the circus kid, the traveller, you know, they're all clean versions of what I may have got called at the time. And this did, cutting to the chase, have a negative effect on my mental health. But also I got addicted by this point to an audience clapping or laughing at the right times. From the performer. It's addictive, it's a drug. Because that feeling of an audience clapping or laughing at the right times sets off dopamine and serotonin, which are the body's natural feel-good drugs. And a lot of performers will tell you it's better than any recreational drug you could get, just having that natural high of a good show. So I got addicted to that, but by the same token, I was really hating the fact I was getting bullied as I saw it for being brought into this world of performing and being the clown and the odd one out. So I kind of thought I was rebelling when I got myself involved in magic. And by magic I don't mean devil worshipping or anything weird. I mean card tricks and do with hands quicker than the
eyes. It actually fits in. I show the devil worshipping bit anyway.
Oh, tremendous. I thought I was rebelling because I ended up telling me that no, I'm not doing the clowning anymore, but I wanted the applause from an audience. So I thought I was getting that through magic, but I thought it would avoid me getting bullied because I'd no longer be the clown. But then I started getting attention as a magician. Getting in the newspapers, and lo and behold, same thing happened with kids at school. Got bullied because of being the odd one out. So I would say, jumping forward, I got to being about 12, and I was at the library where they had the magic books, and the adult library was under a section called Sports and Pastimes, and just to the right-hand side of them was the self-help and popular psychology books. And one of them was called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I saw the title and I thought, if I get that book and learn how to win friends and influence people, it'll stop people bullying me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't work for a couple of reasons. The book's good, it's great for salespeople, but unfortunately, the things in it don't work very well on kids at primary or secondary school. As I discovered, it's more meant for the adult workplace. But what it did do is it made me aware of this new section of the library where I noticed some books by a guy called Emile Coué, C-O-U-E. And a lot of people may have heard of one of his popular, it's called self-affirmation. Some people call it positive thinking. Of every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And this was a phrase he came up with, and said that if you said it at least sort of, you know, at bare minimum of 3 times in the morning when you wake up, 3 times during the middle of the day, 3 times at night before you go to sleep, every day, that you'd notice positive changes in your life. And studies have shown that it did, because it got people focused on more positive thinking. But buried in the pages of this book was a thing that's known as the law of reversed effort. In a thing called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, they call it what resists persists. It's briefly, when you see a stage hypnotist get people to put their hands together, so they're pressing their palms together, fingers of the left hand against the back of the right hand, fingers of the right hand against the back of the left hand, squeezing them tightly together and just imagining in your mind's eye that they're locking, gluing, welding, cementing. Now, try to separate your hands. That's what they'll say at the end. Try and just prove to yourself they're locked, glued, welded, cemented. Well, the thing is, that word try, the word try implies it might not be possible to separate your hands. So it's a massive suggestion, the way it said, try to separate your hands. So it's implying you won't be able to, making it more likely for someone who's suggestible to buy into the idea that their hands are locked, to then discover that their reality is that, because they've convinced themselves of that new reality. And I read the psychology behind this, and I thought, that's it, I'm going to try it. I've nothing to lose, because at school, most days, the bully had come up with his entourage, do his verbal onslaughts, while his entourage laughed their heads off, and then he'd hit me or slap me around the face or something, and walk off with them all thinking he's wonderful, and me there thinking, what the hell's just gone on again? So the next day, when I'm pinned against the wall, before he could even start doing the verbal onslaught, I just went, what are you waiting for? What? Stop talking crap like you normally do and just get it over and done with. Try and hit me now. Go on, try. Yeah. Now, it may have been an element of what resists persists, the law of reversed effort, that caused him to not hit me. Or, as I later learned, there's a thing called pattern interrupts, they call it in NLP. That's where you do what somebody totally does not expect you to do. It doesn't fit the pattern of the natural behavior they would expect in that circumstance. Well, obviously, they expected me to just be there scared, not to do what I did. So that was arguably a pattern interrupt, as well as using the word try. But ultimately, it kind of, his eyes glazed over. A state of confusion and disorientation clearly went on of what the hell's going on? This isn't what happens. This is unexpected.
Yeah.
And suddenly let go of me and just went, F off, I won't swear, but went, oh, F off, stay away from me, and walked off with his entourage and never came near me again.
That's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's when I suddenly thought, this psychology thing, something worth looking into more. And I did. By the age of 14, I did lie about my age, but by the age of 14, having lied on the form saying I was 18, I'd done a correspondence course in hypnotherapy, and then I started treating people with that. But I still craved an audience's applause.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's how I then got into doing stage hypnosis with my newfound hypnosis skills, so I could get the applause from there, whilst having helped myself out on a personal level and starting to help other people.
Wow.
Just a quick question, Jonathan. Yeah. Did you ever come across the bullies at a later time? Maybe one of your shows or something?
Yeah, well, ironically, yeah, years on. And by years on, I mean sort of late 90s, because in the early, I say early, it was sort of 93, 94, 95, 96, 97 time period. I was on television a damn sight more than I have been in recent years. And lo and behold, it's strange then how you bump into people from school who I didn't recognise from Adam, but they made themselves known in as low, I'd be happy to see them. They were trying to make out they were some kind of long lost friend, bloody idiots, you know, of people's madness. So,
well, let's hope his attitude changed a little bit, you know, in those years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, it doesn't make it right, but yeah, things that look different and don't fit a norm, people do tend to
and it molds,
attack.
sets you on a path as well in some ways as well, doesn't it? It molds you as a person and sets you on the path.
Yeah, it definitely. If those things hadn't happened, then I'd never ended up finding those books, and
That's
never.
true. Yeah.
So you know, in every crappy situation in life, there is a positive to be found, and it's definitely shaped the way I look at things as well. Some would say that's very cynical, but I noticed that I talked about confusion and disorientation a few moments ago, but I noticed that's a tool that's used on us every bloody day by politicians, by the media, by governments. It's happening all around us.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a little look into that as well, because there's some questions of real interest people have been asking us. But could you define what hypnosis is? Is it a reprogramming of the brain, just for listeners?
Yeah, well, this is the way I explain it. A hell of a lot of hypnotists out there would completely disagree with me. For example, the vast majority of hypnotists, not all, but the vast majority out there would say that you cannot make anyone say or do anything that would contradict their morals or their values using hypnosis. And to that, I say that is nonsense. If they're either lying because they think that by telling the truth, it might scare off potential hypnotherapy clients or something.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Or they genuinely believe it because that's what they were taught by the person who taught them. But the person who taught them was either lying or didn't know, and so the cycle continues, because you most definitely can. Yeah. You know, hypnosis has been investigated. It was used in a thing called MK Ultra, Mind Control Ultra. Experiments that were done by the CIA from about 1953 to around the early 70s is the official record. Personally, I believe in some form they continued doing such experiments to this day, albeit under different names and in different manners. So I strongly advocate and state the fact you can make anyone say or do anything you want. Doesn't mean to say it will be legal, ethical, or moral to do so. But there again, a lot of what the media do is not necessarily ethical or moral, and certainly has come to light in recent years. A lot of it's not legal either. You know, so, but what is it?
There was a case there, Jonathan, of Boris Johnson was on the telly the other day, and somebody was asking him a specific question. And all he did was talk about something else. And then when she asked him a question about that particular thing, because he veered the talk away, he went on to something else because he didn't like that question either. Yeah. You know, they must, Oxford Debating Society is talking about all these different things. And also, you know, you're for the motion, and then you would do 5 minutes against the motion, you know.
Well, they are actually trained. That's total deflection. I mean, what would be far more better would be, and sometimes they do it, is to start answering the question or appear to, and then steer it off into something else.
Yeah.
So that then it doesn't consciously register as obviously that you're not answering the person's question. But they just don't seem to give a flying beep. I'll censor myself. These days, the politicians are not even trying to hide the fact that they're lying, deceiving. And so back to what's hypnosis? In my description of it, the reason you can make anyone say or do anything that you want, it's because it's not what people think it is. It's really a set of techniques for emotionally and psychologically manipulating people. Now, that can be done with fully positive intent to help them overcome fears habits, addictions, phobias, panic attacks, all manner of issues. Or it could be used with the positive intent of entertaining, to let people let their hair down, let their inhibitions down, and with the star of the show in a comedy stage hypnosis show. Or, unfortunately, and this is the side most people don't like to talk about, those exact same techniques can be used with negative, nefarious intent to control people, to manipulate them, to make them think in a certain direction, to influence the way they react to things. And that is happening all around the world on a daily basis. It's happening to everyone from the moment they're born,
I mean,
all through their life.
I've seen a few shows with not live shows, but on the TV of Darren Brown, and sometimes he's took it right to the edge, as if he's using some sort of MK Ultra techniques. You know, he has a lad playing a video game, and the lights or the frequencies put him into a state where Darren Brown just comes up behind him and takes him into another room and puts him in the reality of what that game was. It's a reproduction of the game. And then he's got him doing all sorts, you know. So the next step from that is to program somebody to actually maybe assassinate somebody or do something.
Well, Darren, of course, did do a show called The Assassin, where he did exactly that, got somebody to apparently assassinate Stephen Fry, the British TV presenter.
That's right, yeah, I forgot about that.
Now, and then in America, another hypnotist colleague of mine, Tom Silver, after Darren had done that show, The Assassin, which you can find he's searching on YouTube or Google, did a show called Brainwash to Kill, which tested the same thing again. And yeah, it's already been done. Arguably, Saran, he's always said that he can't remember doing what he's supposed to have done, namely the Kennedy assassination. And hypnosis definitely can be used to cause someone to kill somebody. Now, people will go, but you can't make someone do something that will contradict the morals or the values. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That may be true to a degree, but just find a way of making it so it's not against their morals or values. For example, if I was to hypnotize somebody and say, when you wake up, you see this person, they look like this, you'll reach into your pocket, pull out a gun and kill them, the chances are they probably wouldn't do it. However, if I hypnotize them and make them believe that whenever they see a certain person, that they're seeing them in the form of being the big chief Indian, and this is their enemy, and they're 8 years old, and they're playing, or 6 years old, and they're playing cowboys and Indians, and they'll reach into their pocket and remove their cap gun and go bang, 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 because they want to win this game of cowboys and Indians, then what they would be doing would not psychologically be against the moral code or value.
Yeah.
But what they would actually be doing when it happened would be pulling a gun out of the pocket and shooting that person.
And I mean, I suppose you could even put the suggestion that once the deed had been done, that you forget everything. You know,
you can, but that's made. There's certain ways to layer this and cause hypnotic amnesia. One of which is the fact that that they would, at some conscious level, suddenly realise, because of the noise of the gun perhaps going off, they probably consciously, to a degree, realise, oh my God, what the effing hell have I just done?
Yeah.
And they would naturally repress what had just gone on in that state of panic that they would go into, and it would cause a fragmentation of the mind, which could have also been hypnotically set up in advance to put suggestions in, so that when they did feel that sense of panic, it was a sign and a signal to them to just allow that to drop away and kind of float away, as though it's floating off into the filing cabinet of the mind as a separate bit. It's very akin to what's called trauma-based mind control, which MK Ultra looked at, and if people go searching on Google, the phrase to search is monarch mind control. It's like the monarch butterfly. It's the idea of causing it doesn't necessarily have to be physical trauma. It can be psychological trauma or a combination of both, to such a degree that the person wants to repress it and kind of disassociate from it, so they don't feel the pain or discomfort. And in the process of doing that, it kind of splinters off part of their mind, and this becomes what gets called in mind control circles an alternative identity. And in fact, psychiatry have names for this: multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder.
Well, we've actually got a very discerning audience, and we've actually covered mind control, haven't we? And how the mind can be compartmentalized.
Yeah.
To do different things. If you go out and kill somebody, come back and have a bowl of soup, and that part of the brain doesn't realize that you've done something, as you were saying, the amnesia. And some of these people who've got these alters that we've actually talked to in the past, haven't we? Where they're trying to bring the front personality, the main personality forward, and get rid of all the alters behind them, you know.
Because these are some people that have been involved in secret space programs. They're actually saying that they're living this life now as well. So there's the possibility that that could be happening.
Oh, definitely. There's a possibility. I'm no doubt it's definitely happened to some people. What I would say is I find it a little bit, I don't know if the word's concerning, dubious, or disappointing in an ironic fashion, but you read about people who go, I was involved in XYZ project. And the first thought that I have is
it false?
If you were really involved in such a top secret project, it begs one of a couple of questions. Either A, why, if it was so top secret, did they not pay more attention to your mind programming and topping it up and strengthening it so that you'd never end up becoming consciously aware that you were involved? Is that because A, you're lying and you're suffering some kind of psychiatric or psychological attention deficiency and want attention? Or is it B, that you were involved in something, and but that something may not actually be what you have been led to believe it was, and you purposely been implanted this idea that you're involved in something as a kind of operation, a Psy-Op in itself, to put it out there into the ether to the general public that these things are possible, so that the enemy of the one country hears about this, like they did with War Ops years ago, and makes them think, oh, is that country ahead of us in what they're capable of? There's
interesting, isn't it?
So many levels what could be going on. But there's definitely something.
When we've talked to quite a few people, I've done a bit of research, and apparently once you get to about 32, 33, you start getting fragmented memories. And there's people who've gone under hypnosis, hypno-regression. One of the people we interviewed Mary Rodwell, she's really good. She deals with people and their past lives, and some people say they've been abducted and that, and she's looked into that. But it's very interesting, and as you say, there could be false memories been put there, and it could be slightly different to the way we just take people at face value. We do ask them questions, and they say
the person themselves would genuinely believe it if that was the case, because it could be put in so that they believe in every nerve fiber, tissue, and muscle in their body, they would believe it, but they could have been programmed to believe that. Or it could be that they've gone through it, but then that does beg the question, yes, if you left somebody who'd been fragmented, compartmentalized, different alters created, sooner or later it could fragment.
We interviewed a person a few weeks ago, and she reckoned she was a hybrid alien. And she was talking like you humans. She was talking like we were a separate species. And she said, "I've got a little bit of human in me, but she was really intelligent as well. This girl.
I can't prove that she
is or isn't.
Is or isn't, obviously, but I will say this: I strongly suspect that the vast majority, if not all, but I can't say all because there's always that possibility till evidence is, could come out one day to prove this statement incorrect. But I'm pretty certain that the vast majority of people who claim to have been abducted by aliens and I have hypnotized many over the years who claim that, or claim that they've been involved in top secret projects. Some of them may have been in top secret projects, but you know what? The vast majority are just attention seeking individuals. They may not consciously, they may have ended up creating a false memory within themselves, but they get some kind of secondary gain. They get, because they're special, because they get attention from it. It makes them feel better as a human being, more whole.
Yeah.
Some people latch onto religion. Some people latch onto going to the gym more than perhaps is even healthy for them. Some people discover that they've been abducted by an alien or involved in a secret MK Ultra mind control thing. Well, I still say, sorry, either they were really crap, the people running these MK Ultra mind control things, and didn't pay enough attention to programming people.
Yeah, it's possible.
You know, or
we keep an open mind, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's part of the show. We do keep an open mind. But going back to, you know, hypnosis, what is it you're actually looking for as a hypnotist? Do you reprogram the mind? What do you get them? Is it the detail level or some sort of level of the consciousness to get people to sleep?
Well, there isn't sleep involved. That's your stuff of that's what it looks like on stage.
Yeah.
You don't even need to get someone to close their eyes even. I find, if you talk about the fight and flight syndrome, well, it's actually fight, flight, freeze, or shite. It's the full thing. You would either, you know, if in caveman days, if an animal came, wild animal, you'd either fight it, run like the clappers, flight, freeze in the panic of, shall I run or shall I stay and try and fight? Shall I run? And that's freeze, which is a state of confusion and disorientation. We'll come back to, or shite, where you poo yourself, and that was naturally meant to happen because hopefully the stench from that would make the wild animal go, I'm not staying here, and run away. The one of importance is freeze, because that is like the cat in the headlights thing, as I call it. It's that confusion and disorientation. It's almost the state that people get into where they're scared, when their mind's going, whoa, 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 what's going on? That, to me, is what I call is hypnosis. Albeit that if you get into that state through fear, then it's a scary thing. That's not good. But you can get into that frozen state of, I don't know what's going on, confusion and disorientation in a manner you can be led there, where it's just sensory overload. It's not actually scary. It's just, there's too much going on. I don't understand it. This is conflicting. And it gets you in that state so that consciously you're fully overloaded, and what they call the critical faculty or analytical area of the brain.
So are you accessing the subconscious mind in any way?
That's what we're doing. By sensory overload of the conscious mind and kind of the dormant of the mind, I call it like a nightclub bounce, the analytical critical faculty, is then comes on guard and goes, what's going on? Don't we start to calm down? We'll work this out in a minute. There might be too much going on. But while the dormant's busy trying to calm down the conscious mind, that means then you as the hypnotist can issue commands, suggestions, call them what you want, that will go directly to the person's personal neck-top computer, kind of the hard drive of their brain, their unconscious, subconscious mind, that once they're in there, boom, they'll be acted on as an automatic reflex action. So that afterwards, even if the individual, and this is how people end up with habits, okay, or phobias. Somebody might, when they're very young, for example, walk into the kitchen and they suddenly hear their mum scream, and they turn and their mum shouts their dad and goes, get this spider out of the kitchen, and they see a spider on the wall. They've seen their mum scared, they've seen a spider on the wall, they connect the two, it goes in the mind because there's a heightened emotion and fear, and boom, the conscious mind goes, there's too much going on, mama's crying, I know I'm crying. And the dormant goes, it's all right, calm down, daddy will be here in a minute. But the emotional overload goes into the computer memory back and saved. And then in future, because your unconscious mainly, its main job is to protect you in the best way it knows how. So now it's got this connection of see a spider, be scared because mummy was scared. So from there on in, the child sees spider and reacts the way they did before, but each time they do, it's like they get better at being scared of it, and it amplifies, and that's the phobia. And the only way to reverse that is because it went into the unconscious mind with emotion, is we have to create, it's called in psychology, state-dependent memory and learned behavior. Because it got instilled there with emotion, we need to create a strong emotion to be able to release it.
Back out, yeah.
So that then, as the adult that's grown up, because as conscious adult, they can go, I know it's daft, the idea that I see a little spider that couldn't harm me. But as much as they try and stop themselves panicking, when they see the spider, instantly, the filing cabinet of their mind pulls out the filing card or the computer program that goes, this means you must now tense up, your mouth must go dry, you must start to feel hot and panicky. So yeah, he's literally going in and reprogramming the subconscious and conscious mind.
One question I've got for you, Jonathan, is after you do a show and you bring people out of, they've been under and you're bringing them out, how are you 100% sure that you're bringing them fully out safely so they're not going to go away with anything?
Because there's no such thing as hypnosis in the way that most hypnotists will lie to you or inadvertently tell you because they've been falsely led to believe something that isn't true by the person who taught them. All hypnosis is purely suggestion. It only exists in the mind of the believer. So it's just pure emotional and psychological manipulation. So that's not to say there aren't dangers, because if the volunteer genuinely believes, and they can be made to believe that they've been hypnotized, whereas really we've just played with their ego and manipulated them so that they feel good getting an audience clapping and laughing at them, and they get their 15 minutes of fame on stage, and they don't have to feel bad about it because they can always say, the hypnotist made me do it. It's not my fault. So all self-blame, shame, guilt, and regret is removed from them. They've got to get out a free jail card because the hypnotist made them do it, But that's not to say there aren't potential dangers. Is it possible that someone I've said, sleep when you wake up and hear this piece of music, and then they hear perhaps a bit of Elvis, jailhouse rock. Whenever you hear that, you'll be the world's greatest Elvis Presley impersonator. If I wasn't to say to them, that's now completely cancelled out in every way, it no longer affects you as it once did, is it possible they may get into their car and it come on the radio and then them suddenly start dancing like Elvis and thus, as a result, cause a car crash? In theory, with a highly suggestible person, yes, that is possible, which is why it says in the 1952 Hypnotism Act, all suggestions that have been given to the onstage volunteers must be fully and completely cancelled out in every way before the individual is allowed to leave the stage or the building.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? So they don't go and eating an onion and say, "Oh, it's a lovely apple."
Oh yeah, exactly. So yeah, not everything ethically, legally, and morally should be completely cancelled out in the context of what someone's done on the safety of the stage.
One of the questions we always talk about is the news that's on the TV. It's almost as if they're brainwashing the public. They're bringing the same. We can see it from the outside looking in, but you can see that it's going a certain way, and then the reporters who are just repeating stuff. They're pushing us down an avenue, and they want everybody to come on board with them. Just like, for argument's sake, everybody must wear a mask when we had what we had a couple of a year or so ago.
Yeah.
And it's what do you think about that? The way the news,
without a doubt, again, off the top of my head, I can't remember if it was the 50s or 60s, but there was a thing called that's now been acknowledged existed through the CIA in America called Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Which was basically the media manipulating the mass populace. Now that was it essentially apparently ended. The official records show it was ended. I don't think it ever ended, frankly, because those that choose to look with their eyes more wide open can, as you say, see that if journalism was as it's supposed to be, namely truthful and in the public interest of telling them facts and not trying to emotionally and psychologically manipulate them into what politicians, governments, and multi-millionaires and billionaires and the powers that be want them to believe, think, and react to, then we wouldn't find what we do, which is a few things. Firstly, we'll take Rupert Murdoch, for example. He owns numerous different media institutes, newspapers, magazines, television stations, radio. But we'll take the newspapers. He's got the Sun newspaper in England and then the Scottish Sun.
Yeah, we don't talk the Sun in this station much. Yeah.
Well, we're going to do, because we're going to talk about it negatively.
Yes.
Because Murdoch is, we'll come to him in a minute, he's one of the prime examples of not giving a toss about the law, truth, or ethics or morals in numerous ways. I mean, I'm just going to say one word. Hillsborough is one example. Millie Dowler, phone hacking's another. But he's a good example as well, because he owns different media of different political genres. So you can wake up on a Monday morning and buy a copy of The Sun, which you're not going to do, I know, but I'm just saying anyone who's daft enough to could, and have a look at a copy at the Scottish Sun. And they're both printed on the same day. And if it was about truth and facts and reality, they would both have pretty much the same portrayal of that day's news and what had gone on,
Mm-hmm.
And yet you look at them and very often it's like living in a different world. One saying one thing's happened and trying to incite people to feel a certain way, and the other saying it another way. And this happens in America, the difference between CNN and the other
Fox and
you know, the difference between Trump supporters and not. But then when you look, most of these media are run by the same people, the same handful of people.
That's right.
So it isn't about, it clearly can't therefore be about reporting the truth and facts, because if it was, they'd all be reporting the same thing.
Yeah.
They're not. They're creating an emotional story, a narrative to suit an agenda. And part of that agenda, when you take a step back, is to cause division and to cause conflict and disagreement between people, so that they'll end up busy arguing with each other. And while they're arguing with each other and in conflict, and arguably also in that state of disorientation and confusion, arguably in that state of cat in the headlights, what shall I do? What's going to happen here? What's going on in the world? Arguably that is them hypnotized and made blind to what's really going on in the world around them, where laws are getting passed through the Houses of Parliament, where things are happening overseas in a manner different than perhaps the way that it's being portrayed in the media. The fact that, you know, people's logic then goes out the window and they just react to things emotionally. So, you know, boom, petrol's nearly £2 a gallon. Sorry,
I mean, right now, perfect storm, isn't it? Everything's going downwards and everybody's feelings of frequencies are going downwards, and
it's done on purpose, because they can do whatever the flipping heck they want while people are caught up in all this confusion. If you take a step back, the petrol thing, most of it's taxes, well, a large amount of it's taxes that they could easily sort if they wanted. Full fact, the fact-checking organisation thing the other day interestingly flagged up a friend of mine's post where it said that petrol was actually cheaper to buy wholesale now than it was a number of years ago. So there was no logical reason for it being so expensive. And Full Fact flagged it up as, well, that's kind of true, except it doesn't take into account that stuff sold in dollars and there was a difference in currency conversion. Well, that's nonsense anyway, because at the end of the day, whatever the currency conversion is, it still costs that much per barrel compared to what it was then. When you start looking into it, the fact is it's being artificially inflated under the guise of war going on, under the guise of Brexit delivery and various other things. So that they can push their agenda that's tied in with Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 the World Economic Forum stuff about, the Green New World and all this.
Klaus Schwab as well.
Klaus Schwab, to push people into buying electric cars, which are not cleaner anyway, because you've got to get the batteries done for them. And it was in the media a few days ago, some of them that actually, the odd journalist will tell the truth, that you've got to drive something like 50 to 75,000 miles before you even get to the point of there being a possible break even on the
crazy, isn't it?
On the carbon saving thing. But the chances are your battery would have knackered up by then, so you have to get another one. And the lithium batteries, the way they're made, go and do your own research. It is very damaging to the world. In actual fact, it isn't actually better for the world.
But they started mining again in South America, and to get the lithium out in Australia. So it does go round in circles. But does that also show you, Jonathan, that our minds are quite easily manipulated as well?
If you allow, if you voluntarily, here's the thing, if you pick up without thinking about it a newspaper and start reading it, you've kind of consented to allow that stuff to start to go into your mind. Same as if you turn the telly on and it changes, the program ends, you go in the kitchen, perhaps get a brew, come back, sit down, and the news comes on and you think, oh, sod it, I won't change channel. It's only on for 10 minutes, this bulletin, there's something else on. You've kind of consented then for those negative messages to be fed into your brain. And this is why there's always, you get 10 minutes of mainly bad news. You might get a I'm finally upbeat story, but generally it's largely bad news. And there's an old saying in the media, if it bleeds, it leads, which basically means if it's an atrocity, there's blood, there's death, there's scandal, there's fear involved, front page, because that will sell papers, or it's the headline on the news to get them to watch. And it is all about putting the world in a state of fear, that fight, flight, freeze thing, because while you're in that state, they know, having studied it, and they have, because this is one of the things they studied with MK Ultra, was trauma-based mind control. Well, you don't have to physically torture somebody to do that. They've now honed it to the point of psychological warfare. What perhaps a lot of people don't realize is that, the media go, oh, are we about to have World War III? Russia, Ukraine, are other people going to get involved? World War III started before the Russia-Ukraine nonsense. And yes, it is happening. It's happening now. It's psychological warfare. And if you look, that might sound a bit conspiracy theorist, but all I say to those people who think it is research, the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, years ago, it started off, it was an offshoot of MK Ultra in America, and then in London, there was the Tavistock Hospital, which then became the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, which splintered off and set up the Behavioural Insights Team in Westminster, or as it's known in the media, the Nudge Unit, to nudge people into their way of thinking. Government department, if you check, I think it's the 7th, off the top of my head, I'll probably get this wrong, I always do, something like the 77th Battalion. But if you put the word battalion and Psy-Op, UK Army, into Google, you'll find them. It's a genuine division of the army that genuinely deals with nothing more than what they call mimetic warfare, i.e. memes, pictures with a few bullet point words on, that they share on social media so that they become viral and other people share them. And because they're being shared a lot, people come to believe the message that's being pushed through them.
That's true.
It's quite scary. But what do you think of subliminal messages as well? Is that something that's doable? Does that go into the subconscious? Because apparently the Americans, when they were having a bit of a to do with Gaddafi, they would fire on his face, hate and things like that, and it goes into the mind very, very quickly.
There's evidence to say that it does. There's evidence to say that it doesn't. What there is evidence of that strongly, definitely the case, is that visual imagery, especially the more abstract, weird or funny it is, strange, weird or funny, something that causes a quick emotional reaction, boom, will bypass the critical faculty of the mind and go boom, like straight into your unconscious.
Right.
Will have an effect. Hence, how memes shared can cause people to end up having rows or sharing them virally because they're funny. Social media itself's a whole Psy-Op. I mean, it's got some great things. It connects us with family and friends. There's real positive elements, and that's how it's sold to us.
Yeah.
But the powers that be are able to use it to control and influence. And again, that's not a conspiracy theory. Do your own research into a thing called Cambridge Analytica, which is a UK government grade weapon, it's classified as, which is a psychological warfare weapon that was used to influence the Brexit vote. That's a documented fact.
Yeah. They did come to the fore, the Cambridge,
That's
didn't
right,
they?
yeah.
And it's well known. Well, it seems to be a Western narrative that the Russians are doing this quite a lot, influencing a lot of our elections and things like that. So obviously they're doing it, but we're doing it as well, aren't we, in a different way?
Well, yeah, but also remember, if you're doing something and you want to avoid kind of getting caught out as easily, always find someone to be the enemy and the villain and point the finger their way. But when you point that finger, 3 of them are pointing back at you.
Yeah, exactly. So is the mind easily manipulated? Are we easily manipulated as people, human beings? The physiology of it and things.
It's scaringly easy to manipulate people who just, as I kind of say, walk around like sleepwalking zombies, which is the subtitle of my documentary that I released a few years ago. Which the whole premise of that documentary, incidentally, which is called Extreme Danger, Extreme Hypnosis. It's a 1 hour, 45-minute documentary. People can watch it free of charge. It used to be on sale on Amazon On Demand, but during what went on in the world, I won't say the word because it causes problems sometimes on the internet. We decided to take it off sale and give it away for free in the hope of waking people up. And you can see it for free on magicalguru.com, my website. And that shows you where every area of your life, politics, it's just an illusion of choice, for example. Vote for these or vote for them. But by having the choice, it gives people the idea they've got some sense of control when they have it.
Yeah.
But also it gets them to argue with each other. So it's distracting them from what's really going on and putting them back in that confused state. Education isn't about learning. It's about teaching people to obey authority. And we go through all different areas of life in that, and then show you the simple ways to avoid falling for it yourself. So the easiest one is don't buy newspapers. Don't let the news come on in the background. If you're going to be eating and distracted from the telly, turn the telly off. Eat your food. Not only will you enjoy it more after a few days of getting used to it, but you'll end up finding that you probably eat less and lose weight because you'll realize when you actually feel full rather than just getting bloated. And also, more importantly, because while you're paying attention to eating and enjoying your food, you've not got the telly on in the background. If you have it on in the background, because you're consciously occupied eating, whatever's going on in the telly can just bypass and go in. And that could be really negative stuff, depressing stuff.
To be honest, there's not really much uplifting stuff on the news these days. As you said, you used to have, and finally on news years ago, you never really hear a good luck story now.
I mean, in the COVID, I got to the point where I turned the news off. I thought I'm not, as you say, it was just negative, and we're susceptible to it as well. But we're quite fragile in our mindset as well. As you
become. They say you are what you eat. Eat crap food and processed stuff, and you'll have a negative effect. Eat natural. You'll be. So it is with the way you think and feel, the way you emotionally feel. You're going to end up getting depressed and stressed if all you are ever getting is messages of death, destruction, fear, and all this. If you ignore all that stuff, and I'm not saying be blind to stuff going on in the world, I'm saying you take conscious control. So you choose to, instead of letting it all just go in unfiltered when you're doing other stuff. Go, right, one time of the day, a day that you choose, you go on, and you type in, say, news headlines, you find an independent site. If there's some, so you can see if there's anything major you need to know about.
Yeah.
But if there is anything major, common sense comes into it that you need to know about, then look at it on at least a couple of different sites, because you'll get differing stories, differing versions, and come to the conclusion, as you will over time, that that won't be fully true. That won't be fully true. It will generally be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Combination. Yeah.
And that's why it's worth looking at two different points of view and taking control of it. And because you do this consciously, this allows you to filter it consciously.
Yeah.
And then you'll only take on board that which feels right. You'll learn to trust your gut, follow your heart, rather than it just getting in there, seeping in, and you kind of being brainwashed, arguably.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, we've had nearly an hour, which has been absolutely fantastic. What's the future hold for yourself in regards to how you're moving forward, and you're positive about the future?
I hope the future for me holds justice, and I'll just mention it briefly. But you said don't mention the Sun because you're in Liverpool. Well, I fully understand. Rupert Murdoch's Sun newspaper and also his News of the World that got closed down.
Yeah.
Have unforgivable crimes against Liverpool, but also unforgivable crimes against a lot of other places and people in England. And I myself, by virtue of trying to expose Rupert Murdoch's now disgraced fake sheikh Mazza Mahmood of the News of the World newspaper, tried to expose him back in 1998. And unfortunately, it backfired a little bit, which is fully explained on my website, circusofthemind.net. And it's in my documentary as well. And it's taken until now, so many years on, I ended up with a short spell in prison back in 1999 because of it backfiring. But in January this year, 2022, I was in the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Unfortunately, because so long had gone, they wouldn't give me permission to leave for appeal out of time. So it's currently just gone in May to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. And I am hopeful with the evidence I've got and the statements I've got and cast iron evidence I've now got that Mazza Mahmood and his team drugged my drinks in the same way that Talisa Kontostavlos claimed and numerous celebrities have claimed over the years. He hacked my phone and used unlawful information gathering in the same way as he has done on numerous people. And I've got receipts that prove that now. So I'm taking a civil claim against newsgroup newspapers. But also I'm appealing my convictions. And in the process of that, when I get and I'm being positive, when my convictions are overturned, that'll give me a bigger platform to be able to go out there and go.
Well, let's hope you get some compensation too, Jonathan,
I'm not real. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'd be useful. But it's not about that. What I will want more than anything is to be able to have that platform to then go, look, what I've said for the past 24 years
is real.
Is undeniably true.
Yeah.
And that this proves it wasn't just me. In the course of me researching this for my own quest for justice, I've discovered that Mahmood hacked the phones of dozens and dozens of people. Mahmood drugged the drinks of dozens and dozens and dozens of people whose lives he ruined, many of whom ended up in prison for crimes they didn't commit because they were framed and evidence was edited to give an untrue picture. And yet the CPS and the police turned a blind eye for years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the other positive thing is, you look at the Hillsborough families with Liverpool, justice was nearly 25, 30 years coming through, but it was finally delivered.
Well, to a degree. There's never anything that's going to be good enough to make up.
No, I totally agree. But at least there was some sort of progress, and progress there. And in regards to your hypnotherapy, your courses and your websites, and everything,
much as it always has been, just keep plodding on. And I get. Yes, obviously, I make money from teaching people hypnotherapy and helping them set up their businesses. However, if it was just all about the money, I'd charge several £1,000s for a course, like 99% of people out there running hypnotherapy courses do. I don't. I charge a few £100 because I don't tell you all that bullshit that those other courses do.
Yeah.
I tell you what you need to do, how to do it, so you can start helping people. Not all this theoretic nonsense that most of them get taught that tells them that you can't make people do things that.
Yeah.
So what's your website, please, Jonathan, for the listeners?
One main website which links to everything else, and that's Magical Guru, magicalguru.com.
Magicalguru.com.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Jonathan. Oh,
Thank
maybe
you,
in the future
guys.
there's going to be a lot more questions from the listeners as well. So maybe in the future we could.
Yeah. Send your questions in, and by all means, it'd be a pleasure.
Oh, brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and
Thank you,
Jonathan Royle. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks very much, Jonathan.
Cheers, guys. You're great.